Hello and welcome to the Authority of Love on this Family Foundation Friday with our co-host David Walls. I'm your host Greg Williams, and we're glad that you've joined us, listening, viewing, however you have done so. We appreciate that, and thanks for sharing. David, welcome to you again, brother.
Happy November to you.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're here we are.
Yeah.
And Thanksgiving season is upon us, on into Christmas. I have to confess, I put my Christmas lights up on Halloween Day, and as soon as most of the trick-or-treaters were gone, I had the lights on, so I love it.
Greg, we know the Bible teaches you have to wait till after Thanksgiving to put
no,
your
you're one of those.
Christmas
No, I can't believe
I don't remember what
with
verse that is, but it's in there somewhere.
I can't believe I partnered with the guy this Thanksgiving. No, I tell you why people say that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But here's what I tell everybody. I would have no real reason for Thanksgiving if it wasn't for Christmas. And so I love all of it. I don't discount Thanksgiving. I love all of it.
Yeah.
I love it with the kids and now grandkids, so that's great.
Yeah.
I know you've got plans, and we'll get into that more as we get closer. David, we have, and listeners, audience, we have entered into a deeper level here just this week with an avowed Muslim and Democrat socialist that has been elected to the largest and likely the most influential city in America, and that's New York City. That says something, and it ought to wake us up.
It really is. If you just step back, Greg, and take a look at it, it's kind of mind-boggling. I don't really know how to describe it, but an avowed Muslim Democratic socialist who has, very publicly, he was I believe in the General Assembly in the legislature there in New York, was known to be a radical leftist. Really had accomplished very little other than make a name for himself and kind of become someone that's known in the media environment, social media environment in which we live now, but no real accomplishments in terms of saying this is someone we want to turn over the nation's largest city to. But even more concerning than that, promoting an ideology, a failed ideology.
Yes.
I mean, socialism has never worked wherever it's been tried, and
It's been a disaster. It's not only failed; it's been a disaster.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so, we're going to have to see what happens in New York City, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
And I will say, we'll probably continue to see some of the trends that we've already been seeing, really across the country, where you have folks that are fleeing these liberal, large major cities and heading to Florida and Texas and other places.
Kentucky.
Because this idea that you're somehow going to bring prosperity to people by confiscating and taxing people to unprecedented levels is just it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, and let me say this, David. It's something that I've shared before. You know this, and I've talked about a little bit on here. But when you begin to, across the board, tear down the boundaries or the disciplines of life for the individual, eventually it reaches the system, right? The system. So freedom for an individual, as we now know it in our culture, is you can do whatever you want. Nobody can disagree with you. So now we have those type of groups and people that are getting into so-called leadership on the communal and systemic level because we have failed to uphold that on our own individual and relationship and local levels. And so we need to consider that. I know we're going to talk about some of those things today. You had a pastor's luncheon last week, and there was some of this came up.
Yeah, at the end of the week, we were blessed to be able to host about 50 pastors at the Kentucky Baptist Convention's offices. It was not just for Southern Baptist pastors. We had pastors from different parts of the state and different denominations represented. Very thankful for that. But our heart in that was really just to brief them on some of the important legislative issues, priorities from this past session that was earlier this year, some of the important issues we're looking forward to, but really also to just provide them some encouragement and a reminder, and I know, Greg, this is something you and I talk a lot about, is that our engagement in to support God-honoring public policy in the political realm is not a distraction from the gospel. It is a part of the gospel because God is sovereign and over every sphere, every inch of this world. And so we are called as one part of that to submit our political engagement and our civic engagement under the lordship of Christ, And we continue to be tremendously blessed to live in a country, in a commonwealth where we have tremendous freedoms to make an impact for our fellow man, for our brother, for our neighbor, by seeking to have our laws and policies reflect the truths of God's good design. And obviously, family is central to that.
Yes.
Upholding religious liberty is central to that. And ensuring that government stays within its proper God-ordained role and doesn't interfere even more on the realm of the family and even the church. And so we talked about some issues related to that.
Well, in line with that, David, you and I, we had this discussion a week or so ago. Your in-laws' parents went to Lake Point Church in Dallas, Texas, and their new pastor, Josh Howerton, is not your typical young lead pastor of a megachurch. He has come in on fire, and I think maybe, I don't know, I'm just guessing this, but maybe Charlie Kirk's death had something to do with this. But one of the things he said, and I'll stretch it a little bit because we're going to talk about some of these things, is that he says, we in the church have not prepared our members and the flock, disciples of Christ, to have and he says, a political theology. And I would say, you could put that across the board, media, education, technology, healthcare, and say, we don't have a good cultural theology. We have a churchianity theology. And that really does not express the kingdom of Christ, or the gospel of Christ's kingdom. And that's, I think, a major change that the churches need to consider to come back to or enter in. We need to teach the gospel that covers every part. If you said, Abraham Kuyper, there's not a single inch over all the universe to which God does not say, it's mine. That's lordship, and we don't address that.
Well, and so therefore, every area of life, there's a theological component.
Yes, that's right. That's the way God designed it, right?
That's the way God designed it. And so we were, we wanted to just to encourage, to challenge somewhat. We shared at our pastor's briefing some of the recent studies and sobering information that you and I have talked about the last couple of weeks from Dr. George Barna, and just the state of the worldview in the church, and this continued unfortunate decline in Christians, those who attend church regularly, their confidence that the Word of God speaks to some of the issues of the day that the Word of God speaks very clearly
to. They
to.
want it and they're not getting it. That was one of the studies.
Absolutely. So, but I'll mention a couple of issues that we specifically talked about. One of those was some continued conversation on the need to repeal how the sales and use tax here in Kentucky is impacting churches and church ministries. We talked about this some during the legislative session, but this continues to be a growing concern and problem. And I'll tell you, I was at another meeting at the Capitol this week, Greg, and was introduced to a pastor that was sharing how that's impacting. They have some ministry activities that their church does simply to raise money for overseas missions that they do. Okay, and so they're being negatively impacted in terms of having to give thought about, well, how are they going to handle some of these things? Because, and again, not to go into a full deep dive of the history of that issue, but because of some of the recent changes that happened in the last several years on the sales and use tax, churches are now, for example, recreational ministries required to, if we're talking about upward basketball, that's been front and center of some of this conversation, required to register with the state to become essentially a tax collector from the state. And so there's been legislation filed to address that. Hasn't got across the finish line.
Is there some momentum in that direction?
I do
you
think, and part
positive?
of it has just been an awareness issue, because most folks are not aware of this issue. Most churches and pastors are not aware of this issue. But I continue to be thankful for so many pastors and churches, as they are becoming aware of it, saying, yeah, we want to be a part of seeing this addressed. And I'll mention one, our friends again, and I'm attend a Southern Baptist church, Porter Memorial Baptist Church here in Lexington. But our friends at the Kentucky Baptist Convention, they are having their state convention where messengers gather together once a year. And they, a lot of times, will take up several public policy related resolutions and say, this is where we stand as Southern Baptists. And we, a lot of times we encourage our churches and members to engage in support of these things. And one of them is a resolution calling to repeal the sales and use tax and its impact on churches and church ministries. So my hope and prayer is that will pass overwhelmingly, and that will continue to raise awareness and build momentum. But there's some others that they're going to be considering that are in alignment with some of the policies that we're advocating for. One of them is a call to protect the medical conscience rights of medical workers. That was continues to be a big legislative issue.
Absolutely.
We got almost to the finish line on that issue this last session, but I'm thankful that
We need to pray that over the finish line.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I know another one you're going to do is one that I think actually permeates a lot of this because, and if you're not familiar with this as listeners, go just do a search on Dr. Alfred Kinsey. I hesitate to call him a doctor, even though his educational degree says that. But when you find out what he did and how much that permeates even things like medical conscience rights and these kind of things, it's in there.
Yeah.
Because this is the reason there is a fight over this.
Oh,
that they don't want to push a lot of the things that he espoused from junk science. And we now live it out, and even many of our churches are caught up in it and don't even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll also be a resolution on the need to continue to promote family formation and uphold and champion the reality that children are a blessing from the Lord in spite of what we're seeing across most of the world, certainly the Western world, or not just the Western world, most of the world, with declining birth rates, which is a deep sign of a rotting culture that views children as burdens or something that can be discarded,
or objects,
and then also there's going to be a resolution relating to calling for the banning of pornography.
Yeah, that was my point earlier.
Anyways, just be in prayer for the gathering next Tuesday, and pray that these overwhelmingly pass, and help even outside of Southern Baptist circles just continue to call and encourage the church to engage some of these important issues, especially as we head into the legislative session.
Yeah, and here's another one that I know the Family Foundation has been battling for a long time and seemingly lost that battle.
Yeah.
All of us that stand on that is the whole issue of gambling. And now, we've seen it show up in the NBA with in one guy in particular, Chauncey Billups, who had a sterling reputation. But not only is it gambling,
Hall of
David,
Famer.
Hall of Famer, MVP, Finals MVP. Here's the issue, though, David. We were telling them, when you get in bed with gambling people, you're in bed with crime.
Yeah.
5 crime families involved in this NBA gambling thing. So we've got to address that as well. And I know you're going to.
Absolutely. I mean, you just roll back the clock for those that were pushing and continuing to push the expansion of sports betting and other forms of predatory gambling. If you had said, we kind of got mocked in the debate of this at pointing out, well, there used to be all these gambling scandals in sports, and then the Major League Sports across the board kind of said, well, I think we should distance ourselves from the gambling industry. And then when it was brought up that this might cause these things to return, we were said, oh, you're just scaremongering, fear-mongering, and I'm like, Exhibit A, human nature has not changed.
Yes.
So if you go all in promoting vice, and then the amount of money that's involved now, which is astronomical above anything that could have been imagined.
That's going to draw all kinds of whatever you want to call it.
We are going to continue to see these impact sports, and bigger than that, it's going to continue to impact culture and addict people, particularly young men, into these areas that lead them
which
astray.
Will destroy relationships, marriages, families. So please be in prayer for all these things. We'll keep you updated as best we can. David's on top of it. And we ask for your prayers on all of these issues. I ask that you'd always also pray for me as I leave. I'm in Mississippi right now and be speaking this afternoon at the conference there. So thank you for that. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in Christ. I'm Greg Williams with co-host David Walls. You're listening to